Do you guys want to talk about that whole work from home tax credit thing or no?
Oh yeah, well yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, so just a small ripple. I think we chatted about
Yeah,
it probably in the past,
I
but basically,
yeah.
a lot of tax credits. There's federal tax credits and provincial tax credits, at least in Canada. And in the states, there's different setups. But quite frankly, the government would put tax credits up for a steel plant or an auto plant or studios, and they're different from animation to video games, um, and and so primarily the tax credit is based on the idea that if you keep the people local in the province, they will pay rent and buy coffee and Ubers and all that stuff. And some of the revenue of that goes back into the system, right? So it's basically on income taxes is what this whole system's based on. Mm-hmm. So the challenge is when someone's out of province, the studio doesn't get that same amount of credit, or they might lose the credit completely, right? So it's why sometimes they'll say, well, that person's in BC, unless we relocate them, we can't really hire them, right? Because we're going to lose 30% on the credit or something like that, as an example. So if you're moving around from province to province, there's sometimes some hesitancy to hire you because the studio said, well, this is going to hit our budget, right? Mm. Or a lot of them look at the year you worked previously. Where were you located? i.e., you were in Ontario till the end of 2020. Therefore, any studio in Ontario could get the credit for you because you're seen as an Ontario resident.
Oh, interesting. Just because you resided there before for long enough.
Yes. So they say the last calendar year, this person was in Ontario, so I can apply for the credit for this position. Now, if you just come from BC, and it's January as an example, and you're moving to Ontario, the studio's like, oh man, we're not going to get the credit for the whole year because they were in BC last year. Mm. However, here's the ripple. If it was, let's say, October, generally speaking, I'm putting some ballpark on this. If it was October or near the end of the year, the studio is going to lose the credit for October, November, December, but be able to apply for January and forward because you're now a resident of the province. So you might see sometimes a trend in studios hiring people in the last quarter to get them flown into BC or flown into Montreal or flown into Ontario, wherever it is, because they know if I get this person registered and get them an OHIP card or whatever the BC Health card or Quebec card, and I get them an address and I get them a hydro bill and I get them a rent, I can prove they're actually in the province, right? Literally, no joke. Sometimes they ask for that. Can we see a hydro bill?
It sounds like a perk. It sounds like the recruiting department can do all that work for me. That's great.
Yeah. Anyways, it's something that some people have often questioned because they've been off like at Weta shooting a movie and they're trying to get back to Ontario. And I'm like, dude, timing's just not right. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, they're like, but I'm born in Canada. I'm like, yeah, but you've been out of the country for like 2 years. So they put you back in this weird bucket of not resident, not local.
I have a more general question about the tax credit because, studio, obviously the tax credit is allowing them to have a, refund on the employees that they're hiring locally. Yeah. Moving in a world that, outsourcing, freelancing, having employees in other country and all that is going to become more, I don't want to say the norm, there'll be a little bit of everything, but it's now an option that most of studio open their eyes to. They used to have an option that, well, I can hire locally, so I'll have this 37% or whatever, or I can also work with this super talented artist that lives in a country where the cost of living is lower and the currency is lower as well. Right. So that's way more than 37%. So I don't have the incentives anymore to run after those tax credits. And the second part, sorry, it's a long question, but assuming that the tax credit will be less and less relevant, doesn't mean that Montreal, Vancouver, Canada in general, and a few cities in the Europe are going to lose all of their competitive edge to have the studio to come up.
So pump the brakes, my friend, pump the brakes. So all you have to do is ask some of the big VFX studios how that's working right now. And I've been at many of them where we've got 1,000 or 1,200 or 15 people in India, and we've got another 500 in China, and so on. And on paper, exactly to your point, and I remember having a very senior creative director on a movie saying, he said this, He said, I can get 4 people in India for what it costs me for 1 person in Canada. And I said, you're looking at the wrong numbers. You're looking at salary. The throughput is different. The quality is different. The management of that team is different. While the facility over there is cheaper, the labor rates are cheaper, we are redoing about 50% of the shots when they come back to Canada. So now you've got a team here, and we had some going to Los Angeles getting redone before the client saw them. So this false economy is what I was calling it. He didn't like me talking to him like that, but it's true. And here's the other thing. And I just talked to some a couple of VFX shops in England in the last couple of weeks, and they said sometimes a shot comes in and it's fantastic. Comes back from India, they're like, "This is amazing. This is amazing. Who did this? Who did this? Who did this?" Because it's standing above the quality of 60-70% of the other shots they're getting. Something happened. Was it the right day? Was it the right person? Who touched this? Whose hands were on it? And then when they call, they're like, "Oh, that guy just got recruited out of India, out of the service studio to like Australia, because somebody else found out who was doing really good work." So it's like even their people are getting recruited out, so they're having a talent drain as well. They're having a challenge, the same challenges we all have, right? Whoever's a phenomenal rock star in this industry will get scooped up by somebody if they want to, and they can carry on, right? And so back to tax credits, there's still and there's many studios wrestling with this right now. How do we outsource efficiently? How do we outsource economically? How do we outsource in a way that I'll give you a couple examples. Some studios where we don't do roto here anymore. All the rotoscoping gets done in India. And then eventually it becomes we don't do any match move. We don't do any, and it starts to creep up to we don't even do comp here anymore. It all gets done in India, right? And then I'm managing a studio. This is a few years ago. One of the senior compositors comes in and says, "I know I'm not supposed to comp anything anymore, but I just got 50 shots and they look like my child did them. I can't." And he goes on and on and on. He said, "The service studio over there is screwing this stuff up. And I have to drop what I'm doing. I'm repainting stuff. I'm not even a painter, right?" So this came up. And so, we're working with the vendor to try and increase the quality level. And then we started sending supervisors over to get their eyes and hands on everything and try to, implement new training. And really what it is in some areas, their talent market is just like ours. It's moving fast. People are poaching, so to speak. They're moving people around. They're offering them an extra, X number of dollars an hour to come. So there's I think a little bit of a fantasy that this outsourcing thing is going to be perfect. The other thing, you have an IO team now. You have 4 or 5 angry people ingesting shots every day going, the naming structure is wrong here. They didn't include that. This whole file's not shipped properly. I got to send it back to them and wait 12 hours for a reply because they're now asleep, right? So I'm not saying it's not working. It's working. It just is challenging. It's expensive. There's a refinement. There's a loss of time. There's a lag or a latency on some of it. However, many big companies, the multinationals, are trying to figure this out. Because if they can get this right, they will, of course, save bucket loads of money.
Because if it doesn't have to be a compromise, right? If you can save some money, but also because we all know that there's some amazing talent in these countries.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But unfortunately, some studios are kind of operating in some of these countries are keeping the costs down low intentionally to take the work, but that doesn't necessarily that sometimes comes at a really big cost. Meaning the quality of the work is actually not maybe always there. Is the big question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Or again, you've got an A team and a B team, and the A team is now busy doing tests for the next thing that came in. But
that even happens here all the time.
Oh no, absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like I said, they share the same challenges we share, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, it's a shortage of very skilled, dedicated talent. No matter where you are.
That's what I would do. So focus on your skills and make sure that they're up to snuff and you won't get sucked into this problem, hopefully.